We are talking group of 5 college football. You could actually call it best of the rest. Hayden really came up with that title. Good title, Hayden. As we talk about the best of the rest, because we handled the Power 5 teams, Power 4, even though I haven't seen them change it to Power 4 yet, even though it is 4. Sort of like the Big Ten, and I don't know, but that looks a little. Does that seem a little weirder though, Hayden, to be calling a Power 5 when there's only 4 conferences left?
It does seem a little weird, and I know we're not going to be talking about that 5th conference today of 2 teams, but it is a little strange, isn't
it? That is something else, though. That's right, because you had the option, both of you guys, to talk about 2 Pac-12 teams, all the Group of 5 teams, and any other team, including FCS, Division 2, 3, and so forth. No Washington State or Oregon State players on the show today. So is that because, John, that they're just talent's just not there, or just couldn't fit?
We're looking at the lists, and there's guys, but there's not. It's not very exciting. So I think Hayden and I both decided to go out of the box a little bit and pick some players that are kind of under the radar, getting ready for our under the radar type stuff. There's some guys we could talk about for sure, but there's on the offensive side of the ball, those 2 schools in particular, I don't see much right now. It doesn't mean that guys aren't going to emerge.
Sure. Yeah, because you have to imagine that when Jonathan Smith left, he probably took a nice little group of Beavers with him to Michigan State, or they decided to go elsewhere. So I'm really looking forward to see what Jonathan Smith, because I think he's going to be very successful at Michigan State. But that's another story for another day. This is the best of the rest. So we're going to talk offense on today's show here on the Ourlads Football Channel. And if you haven't been here before, and this is the first video you're checking out, you can check out all the other videos that our top scouts have broken down. A lot of the key players that are going to be available for the 2025 draft, or we think will be available for this year's upcoming draft or next year's draft, but also players that are going to be very instrumental in their team's success this upcoming season. We're only asking them to take 1 from each position. Sometimes they'll go out of the box and take 2 or 3. But that's it. That's all we're limiting it to. So we have tons, as Coop said, we have tons of other players that we're going to be talking about in the weeks and the months to come, especially as we get closer to the draft. But more importantly, even just over the next 6 weeks, 4, 5, 6 weeks, the college football season begins already in Ireland. Again, what's up with the Ireland kickoff games? At least, I don't know. What is it? Georgia Tech and Florida State? That's actually not that bad. Georgia Tech might actually be a pretty good team this year. So I'm looking forward to it. All right. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. That's very important because we're just building this channel up, and we're going to build it up to be just as awesome as the Ourlads website is for depth charts. And, of course, we know how successful that's been. So check that out. And as we have talked about countless times, the Ourlads draft guide has been out for a while. But if you have yet to subscribe, this is what it looks like. So you can get this at ourlads.com, of course. And the 2024 draft review guide just came out a couple weeks ago. So this, of course, is hot off the presses and available. If you want to know what the scouts, top analysts thought about the players, where they went, how they graded, things of that nature. So check it out. And that's, of course, at ourlads.com. All right. So we are going to start, first of all, and since we're talking offense, we're going to start at quarterback. And John is talking about out of the box. So I am going to, matter of fact, I got to do this because once this was the first time I was like, you know what, I got to find out who the heck this guy is. So I went ahead and found out by utilizing a little thing called Google to find out who this kid is. Luke. Is it Lehnen, John?
Yeah, it's Lehnen.
Talk about this kid. Why did you zero in on a Division III quarterback?
Well, the reason I did was, I looked at the quarterbacks that I could have talked about, and there were some guys. I kind of looked at what their preliminary grades were, and there wasn't anything appreciably better. It's all kind of free agent stuff. That doesn't mean some guys aren't going to emerge. And so I've seen this kid play. It's right in our backyard here where I live. North Central, Aurora, Benedictine, Wheaton. There's schools all in the West Suburban Chicagoland area, and there's some really, really good football, played out here. And I've coached Division III football, so I'm very aware of these. And so I've seen this kid play. He's a 3-year starter. He's the Gagliardi Trophy winner as a junior, which is pretty unique to win that trophy, and that's the trophy for the best player in Division III football. He's a smaller statured guy. He's about 6 foot, 197. Tremendous athlete. He's also an all-conference baseball player, a pitcher, and an outfielder. And he was the defensive player of the year, one of the best defensive players in Division III baseball as a center fielder. Also hit .351, and he's just a great athlete. Some of the stats he had, he's third in the nation in pass efficiency, and that's all levels of football. 73.3% completions, 48 touchdowns, 3,470 yards passing, and 850 yards rushing. He set school records not only in passing, career passing, but in career rushing as well. You watch him run, he's got tremendous agility in traffic. He's very quick. He's an excellent runner, has a strong arm, and he got a quick release. He's excellent at improvising on the run. I mean, he is he's one of the best college football players I've seen. I'm just talking about college football now. I'm not talking about a guy with the stature of some of the guys that came out in the NFL draft last year. We're not talking about that same type of player. This is playing at a lower level of football. That said, there's been some guys that have played in the NFL that have been solid Division III players. And there's been some guys that were late bloomers in the NFL. I'll give you a name going back a long way. And Ken Anderson. I played against Ken Anderson in college. And Ken Anderson was now back then you didn't have Division III. You had the college division. So you had schools like Northern Illinois University were lumped in with Augustana and Wheaton and North Park and those kinds of schools back then. But, I played with guys that played in the NFL. There's a wide variety of talent level on those teams. But Kenny Anderson was a guy that wasn't really recruited by anybody. He played at Batavia High School right in our area here, and he was more of a basketball player than he was a football player. He was a great two-sport athlete at Augustana, third-round draft choice of the Bengals, and if he would have won a couple of those Super Bowls, he'd be in the Hall of Fame, and I'm not so sure he shouldn't be. But anyway, that's just one example. That's a long time ago. But there's Division III guys that are playing right now. Really good guard playing at the Denver Broncos, Minerts. Holly Marpet from Platteville had a wonderful career. Barch from St. John's, an offensive lineman, is playing for the 49ers. And there's I think there's about 6 guys in the league right now that play Division III football. So he's a long shot for sure. But if you saw the national championship game, if anybody watched that game and saw him play, they lost in a tough game. He's tremendous. He had a great receiver, D'Angelo Hardy, signed as a free agent with the Ravens. He's been released already. But, these guys, if they want to play, there's a place for them to play. There's some of these guys will end up, possibly playing in the UFL. There's some guys in Canada. We have a guy that the schools I coached at that's an offensive lineman playing for a team in Canada, Saskatchewan, I believe it is. So there's a place for these guys. And he's only 6 feet tall. I believe he will get into a camp. I've seen some, pretty good quarterbacks at the NAIA and Division III level that have gotten a shot. Tyson Bagent from Division II is playing for the Bears, and Division II is a notch above Division III. It's not Power 5 by any stretch of the imagination. But this is a talented football player, and he's going to be interesting to watch this year in his senior year.
Is there any, and I know it's transfer rules and all that, it's kind of soon, but when a player has this much success at this level, is there any particular reason why he doesn't get noticed, like even from a Conference USA team or a MAC team, and say, hey, we'll have you come in here and compete for a starting job?
Oh, it happens. It happens more now with NIL and some of the other things. When I coached, I lost some kids to bigger schools. In fact, I went to a game. I remember going to a game, and Eastern Illinois was playing Northern Illinois. And hey, wait a minute, I know that kid. He played linebacker for us back in 2 years ago. He's playing for Eastern Illinois. So yeah, it happens. And not as much as you think, because a lot of these kids, they go to these schools and they're going there for the love of the game. They're not getting big scholarships or anything like that. And so more of those kids stay in. More of those kids' values sets they're going to stay, although that is changing.
Yeah.
Coaches I know in Division III are telling me there's NIL money in Division III now. And even in Division III, there's NIL money. So you're seeing kids transfer down a level too. It works both ways. I mean, when I coached, some of the best Division III teams in the nation, and when we were a playoff team, we always had transfers on our team that came from Division I schools that weren't starters in Division I, and they were looking for some place to just play football. A scholarship didn't mean that much to them. They wanted to play. And that's pretty much what you see in Division III, is kids want to play. And it's a joy to coach at that level, and it's a good level of football.
All right. So Hayden is going to bump up a couple of spots, but not all the way to the FBS. He's going to hang out in the FCS for his quarterback choice, and that is a player by the name of Mark Gronowski, who's bigger than our Division III quarterback, which is not a surprise. But hey, if you're a quarterback for South Dakota State in the FCS, that's interesting. That's intriguing. We want to know more. Tell us more, Hayden.
I just want to make one comment. Mark Gronowski is from Neuqua Valley High School, which is in Naperville, which is the same town as North Central, where our last quarterback went.
Wow.
Isn't that something? Hey, I'll say on Luke Lehnen, too, not too bad a punter either. Just North
Yes, I should have mentioned that.
They didn't punt the ball a whole lot. Yeah, absolutely. Mark Gronowski, though, he enters 2024. I mean, almost undeniably as the top quarterback in the FCS. He has a number of records on the line heading into this season. He was the Walter Payton Award winner this past season. That's the award. It's equal to the Heisman Trophy for the offensive player in the FCS. And he's also won the national championship in each of the past 2 seasons. He owns a career record of 37-3. So if you're looking from a resume standpoint, almost as good as it gets. As they go for their 3rd championship in a row, he has his own accomplishments to chase. And he will become the winningest quarterback in FCS history if they win 13 games this year, which, for the record, they've done that in each of the past 2 seasons. So that's something that he's going to be aiming for. He's 6'3" tall, 225 pounds on the website. He's got a nice frame, 3 seasons of starting experience dating all the way back to the COVID 2020 season in spring of 2021. His experience stands out with his poise in the pocket. He doesn't panic as he works through his reads. He puts the ball in a good location for his receivers at all 3 levels and shows the arm strength to get the ball downfield seamlessly. He throws the ball with anticipation to time up the pass with the receiver's break. He's also a good athlete, and he's going to be able to extend the play while keeping his eyes downfield. Now, South Dakota State, obviously, past couple years winning the national championship, they're going to have naturally better athletes than almost every team that they play, if not every team that they play. And that's not to say that that's necessarily a knock on Gronowski, but when you're going through the tape, it's something that you have to keep in mind, that the guys that he's throwing to are often have 10, 15 yards of separation. Sometimes you have to put that into account when he's going to the next level. Obviously, that's not going to be the case. Like I said, not necessarily a knock on him. You just have to keep it in mind when you're watching the tape. Would also like to see him put a little bit more touch on his passes downfield to get the ball over defenders. And I'd also like to see him lead his receivers just a little bit better. But if you're a team that's in the market for an incoming quarterback, has a lot of experience coming out of the college ranks, and not to mention he could be the winningest quarterback in the history of the FCS, Mark Gronowski shows a lot of upside, and definitely think he's going to be worthy of a draft pick in the 2025 draft.
What do you think about him, Coop?
Solid player. Yeah, I've seen him in high school in this area. He's he's grown. He's a kid that I think can do something.
Okay, before we move on to running back, there are a couple of quarterbacks I just wanted to throw in there. You got and Seth Hennigan is one of them from Memphis, and I think it's important to keep him in mind just because of the fact that he is going to be starting out for the 4th year, and that's rare. I don't necessarily myself look at him as somebody that is going to be like a successful professional quarterback, but he's just had a lot of experience, and this is going to be a big year for him. A lot of people believe Memphis could be one of the better teams in the AAC this year. Maybe he'll get a shot, depending on how their season goes for that illustrious playoff bid. But I don't know if you guys, I know obviously you've seen him, but I'm not sure if you guys think Hennigan is anybody that might have a shot at the next level.
I haven't had the opportunity to watch him yet, so I can't speak on it.
Okay. The other kid that I also want to bring up is Salter. Now, again, I think I once again, I'm not really sure that this kid's going to have much on the next level, but Liberty had such a fantastic season last season. And the kid is just, when you watch Liberty play, and ever since he's taken over, he's a dynamic kid. He's one of those quarterbacks that if you want to put the label winner, that's maybe fits him really well, because you just kind of feel that everything's going to be okay when he's back there. Not only because he can throw the ball a little bit, 32-6 ratio last year, but also because he can run. I mean, he threw for almost 3,000 yards last year and ran for over 1,000. So I think he's one of these group of 5 quarterbacks that if this was last year, Liberty would have had a really good chance to be in the playoffs. So maybe they'll have a chance again. Again, I don't look at him as an NFL guy myself, but I'm not a scout. I just want to throw him out there because I think he is, as John said, about being a very good college quarterback as opposed to maybe a professional on the next level. We can say that again, this is not all about the NFL draft, these shows, but keep an eye on this kid Salter, because I think he's going to be a big part of the college football landscape this season. Okay, let's talk running back. And we're going to start, John, with the running back that you wanted to talk about, Antario Brown out of Northern Illinois, who just seems to be getting better every year. He's been productive since 2021. Had almost 1,300 yards last year. What do you think about this kid? Why did you want to zero in on him?
Well, I had two running backs, and Brown is probably the lesser of the two. But I've seen him play a couple of times in person, and just something about it I really like. I mean, Northern had a really nice team in 21 when he really emerged, and he was part of a workhorse running back, part of there was Mr. Inside and Mr. Outside, and he was more Mr. Outside. And they had that big running back that was drafted. I can't call his name right offhand, that they kind of shared the load. But the thing I liked about Brown was he was a playmaker, really, really quick feet, decent speed, very good jump cuts in terms of picking the hole. And, he's not a big play threat, but he's very good following his blocks. He's very flexible. He can turn the corner and get to the perimeter, and he can get around. He can get on the edge. He's got decent size and toughness. He's a developing pass protector. He's gotten better. He runs downhill and he breaks tackles. I like that. He absorbs. He's got good contact balance. Plays at a good pad level. He's a good receiver. He can move the chains in a short passing game. He's got very good catch radius, very good body control. He can go and get the ball. He's not the physically imposing guy, decent size, but a little small framed. Not sure how much weight he's going to carry. He needs to work on pass pro technique. That's something that, if he's going to slow down blitzers. But he's got some versatility. And I think this is a kid that, we'll find a home in the NFL. He's not an elite player. But in this day and age, you need 3 running backs, and you've got to be able to catch the football out of the backfield. And this kid can do it, and he can make people miss in space a little bit. So this is a kid that I really like. I like what he brings to the table. He's a great effort player. As I said, I've seen him play, and like you said, he's gotten better. And I could see him, as one of the better running backs coming out of the MAC conference this year.
Yeah. But look, this is why I love these shows and why I love doing them. And I think anybody out there that's watching, this is what you're looking for, and that's because if you take a look at Antario Brown's statistics, you would not have any idea that the kid can catch out of the backfield. He has 0 basically stats. I think he's only had about 12 or 15 career receptions in his 3 seasons. But that's why it's so hard. Matter of fact, I think the same thing was said about Braylon Allen. Now, I have no idea if Braylon Allen is going to be able to catch the ball for the Jets, but that's just a recent point that a lot of people, well, can he catch? I don't see it. And all of a sudden, Jets are saying he catches everything in sight. But you've obviously watched enough tape that you don't care about those stats, that once he gets the opportunity to catch the football.
He has been used as an outlet receiver. He has not been a part of the passing game. He's been a pass protector, and he's got to develop in that area. And the way Northern runs their offense, pretty traditional offense in a lot of ways. And they're a handoff, run the ball. Usually, I like to use a couple of backs. And so what you'll see him do is you'll see him outlet up the middle, and to the flat, sit on the numbers. And if they don't cover him, they'll throw him the ball. You'll see him sit up 4 yards deep in the backfield coming through and blitz pickup, and he becomes the check down. And that's the receiver he's been. But in the brief things that I've seen, I'm going back to 21 here now, watching him play. He's made some really nice catches on not great throws. I think he's got something in the passing game he can be used, and I think he's got a chance, to develop. The big thing he's a good runner. He's a solid, hard running back.
All right, running, and again, tons of yardage for Brown, 1296. But a running back that had more is the running back that Hayden wants to talk about by the football program that we just spoke about regarding quarterback Caden Salter, and that is Quinton Cooley, the running back from Liberty. Little dude, only 5'7". He's got some size to him, though, so that's important. He's over 200 pounds. But what a breakout he had last season, Hayden. As a transfer from Wake, he really didn't do much at all. He was there for 3 seasons, a few yards here and there. But all of a sudden, bam, he gets the opportunity to play big time for Liberty. And I know you got to go down from the ACC to Conference USA and Liberty, but still, you get 1,400 yards and 16 touchdowns in the FBS. That's doing something.
No kidding on that. I mean, Quinton Cooley, if you're looking at how the transfer portal can be beneficial to talented players, I mean, he's one of the prime examples of that from this past season. As you mentioned, came over from Wake Forest, ACC. He played in 25 games at Wake Forest, but as you stated, limited carries during his time there. But after making the move over to Liberty, he helped the Flames become the top rushing offense in college football in 2023. He was 7th in the nation in rushing yards, averaged over 100 rushing yards a game. He was 6th in rushing touchdowns as well, on his way to first team All-Conference USA. Matched, as you talked about, with returning starting quarterback Caden Salter, who's a great runner of his own. Liberty will quietly become one of the top offenses you must watch in 2024. As you talked about, he's only 5'7" tall, so definitely doesn't stand out from that standpoint. But he's got a decent build. He's 210 pounds. He's a thicker type back. But his thick build matched with his lack of height kind of makes him a nightmare to tackle. He drives his feet on contact. He'll keep him charging forward even when defenders are hanging on to him from behind. He's got good vision to find running lanes behind the line of scrimmage. I mean, even when a tiny hole is presented, he's going to attack that thing 100%. He's going to push piles forward to make something out of nothing. And as a blocker, he's chippy. He wants to flat back defenders with strong hands and an active lower body. Now, when you're looking at him as a prospect for the next level, he doesn't really have the speed to be like a major threat when it comes down. Like, he doesn't have NFL speed per se. He doesn't possess top-tier lateral agility to make sharp cuts when new holes open up. And I think his athletic deficiencies when you're transitioning to the next level are going to be a problem. But he does possess some skills and traits that are going to give him a chance when he makes the move to the pros. So we'll see if he's going to be a draftable prospect come this time next year. I mean, he's certainly a really talented player, as we talked about, on the number 1 rushing offense in college football next year. Let's see what he can do this year. And by this time next year, we'll see where he's at.
All right. So, by the way, taking a look at the numbers from last year, the running backs who led the nation in yards per game, Brown was at 99.69. He was 16th in the country. Quinton Cooley was just ahead of him at 15th at 100.07. And there was one other running back that I wanted to mention. He is only going to be a junior. He plays at Texas State, as long as he's still there, but I'm pretty sure he is Ismail Mahdi. And Ismail Mahdi had 1,331 yards last year, 10 touchdowns, and 102.38 yards per game. So I figured let's give him just a little bit of love. Texas State, they're a program that really doesn't do much, unfortunately. But, hey, it only takes one coach. So we'll see how things go for Texas State this year. But, again, another young player in the group of 5 that deserves a little bit of cred. Okay. Wide receivers. So let's talk wide receivers. And here's a name that, unfortunately, we did not get an opportunity to we almost lost the opportunity to see him play, and we're going to keep our fingers crossed that he's still going to be able to play. He's coming off a couple of knee surgeries in the last year. DeCorian Clark out of Texas San Antonio. We know they've done a great job with that program has really just turned around. Talk about what kind of upside potentially at the next level that DeCorian Clark might have, Coop.
Well, the thing that's concerning is the injuries. He in November of 22, he tore his ACL. He had second surgery after game 2 in 2023. I believe he only played in one game last season. So, he's coming off that injury. And of course, he's listed on the depth chart. He's listed on the roster. So, I haven't read much about, where he's at right now, but he's on the list, and he's considered one of the better receivers, coming out of non-Power 5 schools, if he's, healthy and able to play. He's got a large frame, big-bodied kid. He should be durable, but it's those knees have been a problem because he is big. He's got good speed. Believing that he's in the 4.4 range, I'm sure. Very strong hands. He's been a deep threat. He can go up and get contested balls. Exceptional concentration. Body control is exceptional. He can get vertical. He can go up and get it. He's that big target inside the numbers or on the outside. He'd be a great red zone receiver. Be great in any type of situation where he's got to move around to get open. Where the quarterback's moving around because he's such a big-bodied target. Very good lateral movement. He is his ability to his breaks in and out of his breaks are quick, but he's got he's got to sharpen that up a little bit. Looking back at 22 tape which is all we really have to look at. I just happen to have some USTA tape I was looking at. He's got to work on the routes a little bit. Right now he's a speed receiver. He's a guy that can go up and get the ball. He can separate on cuts, but he's got to get better if he's going to beat NFL defensive backs and man cover consistently as far as a route runner. That's the only thing. Creating separation has got to get just a little bit better. The ability is there. He's a good lateral mover. He can accelerate, and I love the way he tracks the ball. That's the thing I like the best about him. He was a great receiver and he was very productive in 22. So, we're just going to have to see how he comes back from a long road, with these injuries. There's some things he'll have to work on, but I really think this is a potentially good, very, very good receiver if he's healthy.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because you talk about the fact that he's a speed guy, so he has the knee surgeries. That is going to impact him in some way, you would think, even though he's young, as far as his speed goes. When you see kids like that are more off, well, the speed is the name of the game. He's got to get better doing these other things. When they have injuries like this, is it sometimes maybe a good thing because then they start to learn how to improve on those other parts of their game because they have to pick up the slack? Because maybe instead of a 4.4 guy, he becomes like a 4.5 guy?
Well, regardless of what, whether he loses speed or he doesn't, he's going to have to do those things.
Yeah.
He's going to have to be a better route runner. He's going to have to be more than a go-to big receiver that can go up and get it on the red zone and on the sideline. You don't want that kid that can do things. He can run great routes. He can catch the ball over the middle. He can get open in short spaces. And he's going to have to do that anyway. I mean, the days of, the Alvin Harper, guy that all he does is run by you. Those days aren't necessarily there so much anymore. You're looking for a guy that can do a lot of things. And I think the potential is there for him to do it. He just never had a chance to do it last year, and losing the season in November of 22. But he's, somewhat of a, he's a really good looking kid. He's big. And, he's got a chance, I think, to be, a really good player. But as far as whether he loses speed or not, we'll see. Usually when you come back off an ACL, it takes a little bit of time for you to really get that back, especially as serious as his is. But there's no reason to believe with the way they can do these surgeries now and the way they can rehab that he won't be just as fast as he was before.
Yeah, it's great to see programs like Texas San Antonio turn things around. So, matter of fact, I remember watching them play a couple of years ago. Matter of fact, it was, I think, probably his last season, the 21-22 season, because that's when they started to become nationally known. And they had Zachary Franklin, Joshua Cephas, and he was the third guy for those 2 years. And you knew he was going to be the man the year after until he injured himself, of course, unfortunately, late in 2022. But that's a hell of a receiving core for a group of 5 team, Franklin, Cephas, and Clark. That just shows you how talented that team was. It still is. So,
well, this Clark kid, you go back and just looking back at some high school numbers that I've got here. Just in high school, he came out as I think a 4-star recruit. Yeah. He hit 22 miles an hour on the GPS. They clocked him at 4.49, and in the 40, he was a broad jumper in high school. His vertical, he actually power cleaned 345. So there's some numbers there in those high school combines that they did for this kid that he came out of that, he was pretty imposing coming out of high school. So he's young, but the talent is there.
Yeah. Jeff Traylor's done a tremendous job at the program. And you get the feeling that at some point, I don't know if he's been on interviews with Power 5 teams yet, but at some point, if he wants it, you would think he's going to get a job in the Power 5, especially with what he's done. And if he can, I should say, especially if he ends up getting a job, you would think maybe for a program in Texas. That's something to keep an eye on. All right, let's now go to Hayden's pick, Jerjuan Newton out of Toledo. He's going to go on the MAC. This kid's got a lot of experience, been around for a while. He's been a leader at wide receiver for the Rockets the last couple of years. Matter of fact, the stats were a little bit better, just a little bit in 2022, but pretty consistent across the board over the last couple of years. What sticks out for you with Newton, Hayden?
Yeah, absolutely. Jerjuan Newton has been a guy, he's been in the college ranks for a really long time. He comes from a football-rich family. He's got 4 brothers who all play football. You might have heard of one of them, Jerjuan Newton. He was just selected in the 2nd round of the draft out of Illinois as a defensive tackle. But his brother, Jerjuan, stepped on campus at Toledo back in 2019. He entered the starting lineup beginning in 2021. 2-time All-MAC guy. He was first team player back in 2023 this past season. And he looks to build off of last season coming up in 2024. Now, I know you're talking a little bit about his stats. He only had 696 receiving yards this past season. However, he still led the team in receiving yards for the 2nd year in a row. And as I mentioned, he's looking to dominate coming up here in his 6th season of college football. He's 5'11", 192 pounds on the roster. He's got a solid frame. He aligns both in the slot and out on the perimeter. He's dangerous on his release. He's got suddenness and twitch to gain immediate separation at the line. For a MAC level player, I thought his release was really, really good. He's got sharpness on his route with excellent stop ability to snap off his routes. He was open way more than his stats indicate, and he could find holes in zone coverage to sit and allow easy throws for the quarterbacks. He has solid strength to break leg tackles, drive his feet, and he makes defenders miss in space with quickness to pick up additional yardage. And he's an assertive and willing blocker in space. Now, he's a smaller-bodied receiver. He's not going to win too many contested catches with his physicality. And while he's a willing blocker, he doesn't really possess that strength to hold up for long. I think the big concern coming into this season, obviously we talked about he stepped on campus in 2019. this is going to be a 6th season of college football. You're talking about a kid who might be, I don't have his exact age, but potentially 23, 24 years old coming out of a group of 5 school. I think I don't want to consider that to be a knock against him, but it's definitely something you have to keep in mind. Now, if you go and look at his tape, just solely his tape, I'm not sure that he'll be a draft pick. He's probably a draftable player. We'll see if he's a draft pick, maybe towards the end of the draft. But I do think he's going to be, if he's not a draft pick, he'll at least be a coveted free agent, and looking to see what he does here in 2024.
He does lose his quarterback, which is a bummer. But Finn is going to a Power 5 school, I believe. Is it Baylor?
Baylor. Yep, Baylor. So
good for him, because I want to see what the kid can do there. Okay, a couple of receivers you left me with, which I'm real happy about, to mention these 2 guys. They're both from the Mountain West, and that's Torrey Horton from Colorado State and Ricky White from UNLV. These guys are definitely to look at the next level potential. Both guys are pretty similar in size. They're both around 6'1", 6'2", 190, 195, and so forth. Horton had 96 receptions last year. Matter of fact, he's had over 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns the last 2 years. White had 88 receptions for 1,483 and 8 touchdowns last year. UNLV, what a great story. What a great story that was last year. It's too bad it came falling down at the end. They had an opportunity to kind of put a, exclamation point on the season, and unfortunately didn't happen. But still, exciting season. And you know what? They could even be better this year, because they had a freshman they both had freshman quarterbacks, by the way, last year. So they both, Colorado State and UNLV, get now sophomore quarterbacks. So they could both be better teams. But anyway, I think these kids are not only worthy of talking about what they could do in the college football season, but I got to imagine that they're going to get some play at the next level. So, all right. Now we are going to talk about tight ends. So let's start, first of all, John, you've got a tight end from Bowling Green, all of a sudden Bowling Green is like this little tight end factory there for the last few years. I know they got this one kid at Buffalo that's still hanging around. I think he ended up making the team as a full-time roster guy last year. Anyway, Harold Fannin from Bowling Green had a nice breakout season last year with over 600 yards receiving. He led the team in yards and touchdowns, John. So talk about Harold Fannin from Bowling Green.
Well, yeah, he did it on 41 catches is what he had. He's a guy that look at what the NFL is looking at tight end. They always every NFL team is looking for a big receiver they can play as that big slot. And that also can block a little bit. I mean, if you look at the Ravens with Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, good combination of tight ends. This is a similar player to Isaiah Likely, who came out about 235, 240, and is topped out at 247 in the NFL. Well, Fannin is 230. He's listed at 230. And, the hope is that he could play at 240 and not lose any of his speed. But I'm just going to talk about his blocking first. And watching film, this kid's not a bad blocker. He positions very well. He's not going to knock 3-4 defensive ends off the ball. But, these wide rushers now, some of these guys, he can move his feet. He can adjust his hips. And he can wall and he can position block fairly well. Good base, and I like that in him. I like to see that. I think he's got the athleticism where he can develop into a halfway decent blocker, whereas some of these tight ends, even the bigger ones, can't block very well at all. Well, I think this kid has a chance to at least be a good move blocker in the NFL. He's a great route runner, very excellent vertical prowess. I was watching some film on this kid today, and I'm really impressed. He can go up and get the ball. He can get vertical. He can bend into the seam and get open and find that open spot as a seam route runner. He's going to really challenge teams that like to have their linebackers run that inside seam. He's going to get vertical early, and he's tough to bring down in the open field. This is a kid that after the catch, look out. He can run. He's got great acceleration. He's got agility in traffic, and he runs with power. One clip I watched today, I saw him catch a pass. 2 guys hit him, and he carried him for 5 yards. at 230 pounds. So those safeties back there, had better, strap it on because this is a tough kid. And I think he's got upside. I think we're just going to find – I think you're going to find out that he may be one of the better tight ends as far as a receiving tight end before it's over. He's still a little bit young. He's kind of a breakout guy, as you said. He's a former linebacker who switched to tight end during his sophomore season, and this was his first full-time year, really, as a starter. He's a true junior right now. The draft hype, is going to be there. This kid, I think, has got a chance. I'm really going to be interested to watch it because he's a route runner. He's got good hands. He's got great catch radius. He goes up and gets the ball. I think he's got a chance to be pretty good.
Yeah, I really think, because I've talked about this the last couple of years. I said, you know what, I think this is the year that Bowling Green is going to have a kind of breakout. Well, didn't happen. Said it again last year, and it kind of did. They were winning record. They went to a bowl. They've actually been to a bowl the last couple of years. But the fact is, I'm talking breakout. Like maybe could they be like big MAC championship game? And I say that because I really like what Scott Loeffler has done there. And the fact, though, this year is that they're lucky enough, of what I understand, of getting that Bazelak kid back at quarterback, and that's huge. So,
well, here's another thing about Fannin. I was looking at statistics from a year ago. He was targeted 57 times this past year, and some of the balls were, thrown over his head. But any ball, he never dropped any pass. Anything in his hands, he caught. Not one was dropped. He also led the nation, of the tight ends in yards after contact. So
very nice.
Don't arm tackle him. That's from PFF. We like to, quote some of those statistics that come out. And so I'm impressed with this kid. I kind of got the name. I want to look at somebody from the MAC conference, and his name popped up, and I went and looked at some tape on this kid, and I like him a lot.
No, it sounds like to me that you think that he could be one of the sleepers right now of the draft based on the fact he's a tight end. They're not talked about as much, obviously, as the other positions. Throw in the fact that he's from Bowling Green. And this is one of those kids that probably nobody has ever heard of his name before. And all of a sudden he could turn into
I definitely feel that way. I mean, he's so explosive. I mean, he can stick that foot in the ground and go. He runs. He's got speed. It's going to be interesting.
And if you're thinking, Bowling Green, don't forget little old Scotty Miller. It wasn't not that long ago that Scotty Miller was catching a big touchdown pass in the NFC Championship game with Tom Brady on their way to a Super Bowl. Scotty Miller was the Bowling Green leading receiver a few years prior. And the tight end that I was talking about is Quinton Morris. Quinton Morris actually led Bowling Green for back-to-back years in receiving before he graduated, went to Buffalo, and he is on the Buffalo Bills. So just because it's Bowling Green doesn't mean that they can't produce quality NFL prospects.
I think this kid's upside is very good. I just like his game. I just loved watching his tape.
Well, you sold me. All right, Hayden, you're going to go with a kid from Air Force. Talk about no stats. And look, it's hard to find these guys in the receiving department at Air Force because they don't throw the ball. Now, they throw the ball a little bit more than some of these other service academies, even though nowadays, even they want to throw the ball more. I don't think they should. But anyway, Brandon Engel not a big guy. So tell me, what is it specifically that you like about Brandon Engel out of Air Force?
Yeah, Brandon Engel, this one's a little out there just for you guys. Get ready. I love watching the military academies. I mean, it's like watching clockwork, watching some of those teams operate.
Yeah.
Some of the plays that they do, they just execute it so perfectly. It's so fun to watch.
The old Georgia Southern offense.
That's right, the old Georgia Southern offense. Yep.
I coached against that, and I went to Denny Dornbos coached at both Navy and Army, and he taught me how to defend that stuff when we had to play against it. He was coaching at Northern at the time. Spent a lot of time with him.
It's tough to stop. It is. But, so I
especially when you never see it. It's the only time you ever see it is playing one of those teams.
That's right. It really is. Yep, no doubt. And I know I'm cheating a little bit with this player. He's only 6'2", 210. I have him with the tight ends. I decided to toss him in there because of his usage. Air Force still runs it's a flex bone style offense. They split their receivers out. They're oftentimes just asked to block. Engel is more than just your typical blocking receiver. I'm not saying this guy is a perennial NFL prospect or anything like that, but he's a fun player to watch. As I said, he typically plays out wide. He'll condense his split in and just be outside of the wing. For someone who runs route as little as he does, he has surprisingly good start-stop ability. He sinks his hips to turn to the ball pretty seamlessly. Very physical at the catch point. He'll take a good hit to hold on to the football. And when teammates break into the open space with the ball, he's always going to be the one that's sprinting downfield, trying to make that last block, trying to be the guy to set up the touchdown for his teammates. He's also, as you can imagine, with the number of blocks that he has, he's a nasty blocker in space. He looks to dominate his opponent. Like I said, just watching that Air Force offense run, I mean, like clockwork. The obvious question mark, if you're looking at this guy from a professional standpoint, is his lack of pass catching ability. He has 13 catches in his college career. Up to this point, speed is definitely a concern. He's not going to be able to break away just with his foot speed. So I'm not saying that he's like a legitimate NFL prospect. Maybe he's on a 90-man roster, at this time next year. But he's a really fun player to watch. I totally recommend giving him a watch if you like old school, hard-nosed football, blocking receivers. He's going to be the guy to watch.
Considering he excels, or I would imagine that he's done a lot of work at running run blocking, which some teams in the NFL, they take that very seriously. And do you think that he's, and again, I don't know, you don't know him intimately, but is there a chance that at the next level, let's put 25, 30 pounds on him and we've got something?
I think it's going to be tough because, as you said, you have to put 25, 30 pounds on him. He's 210 pounds right now. And especially if you're going to play him in the trenches, even at 240 pounds, it's going to be a challenge to be able to, especially like uproot an edge defender, whatever it may be. So not sure what his usage is going to be. You can't have him split out a receiver because, unless you really work on his route running ability, like you're taking a guy off the field who can catch the ball, at least at the next level. So it's going to be a challenge. Watch him while he's in college. Not sure what's going to happen to him after that.
All right. Now we're going to talk offensive line. And so we're going to get back to checking out a couple of these guys here, starting with Jacksonville State's Clay Webb. So, John, Clay Webb, what do you like about him?
Well, he was a guy that was born and bred to go to Georgia, from Georgia, went to Georgia, and he really didn't get much of a chance there. Maybe a little undersized at 290, as far as the size goes, but very, very good athlete. He did very well at Georgia as a backup, even though he didn't play much. And I know this is kind of like Rudy. He was the scout team player of the year, while he was at Georgia with very, very little playing time in his 3 years there. So he transferred to Jacksonville State. He gave up his dream to go play at a lower level, and he became a dominant force for the last 2 seasons playing at Jacksonville State. Of course, the COVID year's out, so this is, he benefited from that, being able to play an extra year. He's a very, very good athlete for a guard at 290 pounds, about 6'4". He's an excellent technician. As a pass blocker, interior pass blocker, one of the reasons I picked him is because I'm seeing the trend in the NFL of quicker, faster defensive linemen, defensive tackles. In other words, those 280 to 300-pound defensive tackles that are tremendously quick. In other words, teams are starting to realize that if we can get our best pass rushers closer to the quarterback instead of having them coming around the edge against these long-armed, wide-bodied offensive tackles, we might be better off. That's why, Clark and Matabike, and Jones and some of these guys are so productive as interior pass rushers. And the NFL is looking for those guys. And we've been talking about that for quite a while. So to counter that, we're going to have to come up with some guards that are excellent pass protectors. And this kid is the guy. He's the guy. He's very quick feet. Punch and mirror is excellent. He can play guard or he can play center. He's going to be a versatile player. He's started every game at Jacksonville State that he's played in the 2 years, so he doesn't get hurt. And he comes from a good experience at Georgia, transferring from there. He's also a wrestler, former wrestler, which generally gives you excellent leverage and balance as you're an interior lineman. There's been some really good offensive linemen that have played in the NFL that are have been wrestlers. And so that's another thing.
But they usually come from Iowa.
Yeah, exactly. And I know exactly who you're going to mention, and I'll let you mention Linderbaum. I won't say his name. but this kid reminds me a little bit of Linderbaum. The size is he's listed at 6'3". I think that's accurate. From what I saw on the list. I know they'll get measured and remeasured and all that stuff at 290. So I'm not sure how much more weight he's going to be able to put on, but I'll tell you what, I see the trend in the NFL. If you're going to block these quick interior defenders, as the NFL is starting to morph into that, this is the kind of kid you're going to need. He's got to improve the lower body. I think he could enhance his drive blocking ability a little bit more. And, moving those larger nose tackle types, one techniques, might be a little bit of a problem for him, especially in the run game. But the leverage that he has from his natural knee bending ability and balance, I think that's going to serve him well as he develops. And I think lower body strength can be developed, and he can pick up a few more pounds, some more mass to that frame, especially at that lower level. Whereas he can, where he'll be able to do that. I'm confident he can be a pretty good player. Obviously playing at a lower level of football, but he still played against some NFL caliber competition. He's seen it when he was at Georgia, and he's seeing it now at Jacksonville State as well, because that level of football is getting stronger all the time. And Jacksonville State, is becoming a decent, a pretty good program.
Yep. Rich Rodriguez picked a nice place. They had a successful first year in the FBS, going to a bowl, winning a bowl game. We know Rodriguez can coach, and just keep him at the lower levels. But he can coach there, and they'll get a chance. Best chance for him will be September 7th, week 2 at Louisville. That'll be his spot to play a Power 5 football team. It's the only Power 5 team on the schedule. So we'll see how he does September 7th.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch. I want to particularly see him at who he's playing against. That'll be a game I'll want to see, because obviously they're moving up a level, Jacksonville State, and I think Clay Webb is a solid player.
Yeah, and this is another thing for everybody that's watching. That's one thing that you can look forward to this season. We're going to have videos each week on the scouting shows that will zero in on some really cool matchups that you want to keep an eye on. So who knows? Maybe this is a preview of the week of the 7th, the games that week. Maybe you'll see Clay Webb spotlighted by Coop with a matchup against Louisville. So that's what you can look forward to, though, on the scouting shows. Some of the formats and topics and segments and whatever words you want to use for the upcoming season. All right, let's wrap it up with our final player. And this is obviously another offensive lineman. And we're going to talk about why not bring in a kid. I know that this is the type of player that Hayden really likes to talk about. So let's talk about Jackson Slater. Big dude, 6'4", 316, as you can see there. But here's a kid from a little bit lower in the levels. He's an FCS kid from Sacramento State. Why did you want to pick Jackson Slater? Is he considered one of the top FCS linemen?
I thought it was really funny. I watched his tape and all this stuff over the weekend. And right after I watched his tape, went through it, Jim Nagy tweeted out about him being on the Senior Bowl watch list. So I thought that was pretty ironic timing for sure. But he's an offensive lineman. He's got a ton of experience, a really, really athletic background. He was a 4-sport athlete in high school. He played football, he played basketball, baseball, and track and field before he decided to commit to Sacramento State to further his football career. He ended up starting in the 4th game of his freshman season, and he has not missed a game since. He started in 33 straight games for the Hornets, 31 of those being at left guard, and he actually bumped out at left tackle for 2 playoff games. His accomplishments speak for themselves. He's a back-to-back first-team All-Big Sky selection. He was a third-team All-American in 2022, and he's been the anchor of Sacramento State's deadly offensive line. He stands at 6'4", 360 pounds, according to the website, and he's built like an ox. I mean, he's got a really, really good build to him. He shows impressive physicality when engaging with powerful hands in zone scheme and gap scheme. He possesses solid agility when climbing to the second level with decent foot speed. He gives up 0 ground and pass protection. He's got a strong punch. He latches on to defenders with his physical play style. He maintains good leverage and rarely allows pressure on the quarterback. One of the biggest issues that I thought is he didn't really dominate his opponents. He didn't necessarily finish blocks in the run game. He struggles to drive defenders off of the line or wash them down the line in zone scheme. He also struggles to get off of double teams to pick up the next defender. But he's going to be someone that I'm going to keep an eye on this season. Sacramento State's typically a very competitive FCS program. He's going to be someone that we're going to be discussing as a potential draft prospect, or a potential, I should say, draft pick in 2025.
Yeah, they are going to be taking on a couple of a group of 5 teams. They're playing San Jose State on August 29th and Fresno State on September 7th. So those are the two. Those are the top 2 games to keep an eye on for Jackson Slater. All right, guys. Awesome job as always. Next week we're going to talk defense in the group of 5. Maybe we'll get some Oregon State, Washington State players. Doubtful. If we didn't get offense, I don't know if we're going to get defense.
No, we got some.
Oh, we do. All right. Hey, we're going to get some Pac-12 on the program next week.
There's a couple of guys.
All right. And maybe some FCS, maybe some D2, D3. Who knows what we're going to come up with as we talk defense, best of the rest on next week's show. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. We're going to have a really great season, so that's why you want to make sure you stay tuned here for all our videos. And again, if you haven't already seen them, check them out because we have all of the Power 4 or 5 conferences, whichever way you want to look at it. We have all the best of those conferences. And don't forget also coming up real soon, we're going to start zeroing in even closer on taking a look at the best players on the teams. All, of course, FBS talk coming up right here on Ourlads Football YouTube channel. So, guys, appreciate it. Not sure exactly. I guess we're going to probably do this again next Wednesday night, right? Everybody is available. So hopefully we'll do that. Check back with us then, and we'll see you guys next time.